The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
We do a lot of kvetching. Oh, the NIL, all this money. Guys don't care. They jump from school to school. A seventh-year quarterback? Are you kidding me? But you know what? The product is great. That game last night was spectacular. And I will get to some of the details and lots of the reaction on it. It is a pro football weekend, but tonight my attention is going to be on the Peach Bowl because I've got a rooting interest. And although you can't see me, you'll have to trust me in that I'm wearing my Indiana shirt as the Hoosiers tonight try to go where they've never been before, a chance to play Miami for the national championship on the 19th. It is, it's a weird time certainly in college sports, but sports in general, but certainly college sports. And college football is going through a period of time where it's every man for himself, but still you see a great team performance like you saw last night from Miami, and you go, well, yeah, I mean, at least for now it's working. Now, it's not sustainable. You can't continue to have, and we'll get to the Washington story where the quarterback signs a contract to stay. 2 days later says he's leaving and now is going to stay after his agent quit. I mean, there's just so much drama going on. But the drama on the field was absolutely terrific last night. And I've said this for the last 20 years. 20 years ago, I watched with my son the Rose Bowl, Texas and USC, which was going for – they didn't have playoffs in those days, but if they had won the game, they would be crowned national champions for the third straight year. And they had Matt Leinart, who was a senior, Reggie Bush, who had just won the Heisman Trophy. They were prohibitive favorites to beat Texas with Vince Young. And it looked like they were going to put the Longhorns away. They had gone up by, 30-27 in the fourth quarter, but with 6:42 left to go, they were up by 12 points. It was 38-26, and Texas came back with 2 touchdowns. The game winner, Vince Young, who was just spectacular in that game. Vince Young taking it in himself with 19 seconds to go. You know what happened with 18 seconds to go last night?
Second and goal from the 3. Down 3. Snap to Beck. Looking, center of the field, nothing. Surveying has nothing. Now he's going to run for it at the 5, and Beck is into the end zone. Touchdown! 18 seconds to go, and Carson Beck trying to run the Hurricanes back home to Miami for a championship game.
But it was not over. And if you were watching this game, Mario Cristobal, the Miami coach on the sidelines, was embraced by one of his assistants, and he pushed him away like, whoa, this thing ain't over. And, in fact, it was not, because Ole Miss was able to put together, with no time left on the clock, 18 seconds plus the one timeout, and they got it down to the Miami 35-yard line with 6 seconds to go, and finally it was over.
From the 35-yard line of Miami, Chambliss waiting in the gun, takes the snap, drops back, fades to his left, looking downfield, throwing for the end zone. It is knocked down, incomplete, and the ball game's over. The Miami Hurricanes are headed back to the championship game, and they'll have a chance to win it at their home stadium. Miami 31, Ole Miss 27, a final from the desert in Glendale, Arizona.
That is Mark Kestisher. Spot on. Just terrific play-by-play. Wonderful job last night on ESPN Radio as he called the end of that. And when you look at the replay, there clearly could have been a pass interference called on Miami on that last play. They didn't call it. I don't know if the ball would have been caught inbounds because it was pretty deep in the end zone, but there was clear pass interference on that. Just was not called in that situation, and Miami advances. And the money game is just insane here. Miami, by winning that game, and they haven't won the national championship yet, but by winning that game, because the ACC does not share revenue from playoff games, that Miami will pocket all $20 million from last night. And here's the real cool thing. They get $3 million in travel expenses for the national championship game. You know where the national championship game is? Yeah, it's their home stadium. It's where the Dolphins play, Hard Rock Stadium, and so they get to pocket the $3 million in travel expenses. I guess whatever they'll have to pay for the buses to take them to the stadium, and then they also get to keep the whole $20 million for last night. So it's a big money game, and Carson Beck is a product of all of that. He is now in his 7th year of college football, including the years that he spent at Georgia. And now he is one step away from winning the national championship. And right after the game was with Holly Rowe of ESPN.
You've been doubted. You've maybe doubted yourself, Carson. But as you're running the ball into the end zone in that crucial moment, what does that feel like as you cross the goal line?
I don't even know. I mean, it's the best feeling I've ever had in my life. Man, I'm so proud of this team. We never flinched. In the face of adversity, when we had to respond, we responded. And we never gave up. You know, I looked at the guys on the sideline, and you could just see it in their eye. You could see it in their eye. We all had a good feeling that what just happened was about to happen.
I actually saw you gather your offense on the sideline before that game-winning drive, and you were trying to loosen them up. I saw Mark Flesher start laughing. What did you say to your offense right before you drove it down for the win?
I told them we got 3 minutes for the rest of our life, bro. Nothing else matters, sorry. I don't mean to cuss. Emotions are rolling, but nothing else matters. We got 3 minutes to go do this, man. I mean, everything we've worked for since January, everything we've been through, all the adversity that we've faced, all comes down to 3 minutes in the semifinals, and shoot, we're able to drive it down and finish it.
You guys have been in the weight room, you've been in the building. You told me you get there at 5 a.m. every day. Malachi Tony's there, beat you there at 4:55. He made great plays. Marion made great plays. How did this unit come together to really support each other?
I mean, you said it, all the work that we put in, all the preparation that goes into this. It's for moments like these, you know. You play this game for moments like these. You live for moments like these, you know. Again, I'm so proud of this team. I'm so proud of the way that we fought. Again, I'm just so proud of this team and so proud of the way that we fought today.
Thank you so much, Carson. How about we see you in Miami for a national championship next week?
See you in Hard Rock.
Yeah, at the Hard Rock on January 19th. Beck in this game, 268 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception, which was, I believe, the only turnover of the game. Pretty clean game, though there were a number of penalties. Unlike the playoff games that we've seen throughout this run, there were quite a few flags, and the one that they didn't call probably could have given Ole Miss one more chance, but the last play of the game they did not call pass interference. Now this was kind of fun from last night. I don't know if you were staying up this late to watch it, but Scott Van Pelt, as he always does after games, has on the winning coaches and the winning players and so forth. So he's got Mario Cristobal on, the coach at Miami. And they know each other. You know, Scott's been covering college football, not just for his show, but he did it for a long time before he started. So he's got relationships in college football, and he's, you know, high profile. Cristobal knows who he is. So the post-game goes, for most of it, the post-game interview that Cristobal's doing with SVP goes pretty much like you'd expect. A coach who hasn't yet reached the mountaintop, but he's one step away. And he's just watched his team win an incredible, thrilling game.
If I've got this right, the last time you played at home was NC State on the 15th of November. More than 2 months later, you'll play on that field for a national title. As you allow yourself to imagine what that will feel like to be back in front of your folks in your part of the world, what do you imagine that will be?
Well, Scott, again, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I know you got some stuff to do too, brother. But, you know, honestly, you know, you've already kind of known that I'm the most boring interview in sports. So I don't think I'm so process-oriented, and all I'm thinking about is getting in there with these dudes, checking to see how they're doing. Really proud of them. They overcame not only the scoreboard, but we had a bunch of guys banged up tonight. And we've been on the road, like you mentioned, for 5 straight games. These guys are too young to have ever seen the movie Major League, you know? But that's what it feels like. Like we've been on a plane going all over the world, and we finally get to go home and play in front of our people.
I laughed when you made that reference, Mario, because I'm thinking you're going to have to explain to your guys what the hell you're talking about, what Major League means, but they'll get it. You mentioned being banged up, and you told Laura that you had a bunch of guys that had the flu as well. And I'm interested in this. You come to the U if you're a young guy because you want to play on nights like this, and you have to throw some freshmen into the deep end, man, and they show up and show out. What did they show you when their numbers were called in the fourth quarter of a national semifinal game?
Brother, they showed us what they showed us on tape in high school and what they've been showing us on Green Tree practice field, which is where you earn the right? You earn the opportunity out here on that field that all those greats that came before us got it done. So, again, they were prepared for the moment. It wasn't too big for them, but they were called upon for some big plays, and they got it done. But quite honestly, it wasn't surprising that they performed to the level they did.
When you have to watch a guy like Trinidad with 35 yards and a throw, I know your faith. I told Bijan Robinson this in Atlanta, that I had a coach that used to tell me, Mario, after he would say the prayer before the game, the other team prays too, so let's not make God choose, right? Because the other team's going to try their best, and the ball's in the air, and the Rebs fans are praying too. What goes through your mind in that moment where a play could send you home if it goes the other way?
Yeah, we've lived through that before a year ago, right, against Sweet Tech, and that certainly isn't fun. But I'll tell you, Trinidad is as good of a player as I've ever seen. Absolutely dangerous. You know, we did get our hands on 3 balls tonight. We could have had 3 picks, and we didn't, but it's hard to get him to that point where he can't see stuff. He sees the field really well. His legs are off the charts. When we scored, I looked up, and I saw, 18, 21 seconds. I'm like, oh, crap. You know, we should have found a way to get some more. Carson, man, just walk into the end zone, burn another 6 seconds off. But no, again, it's certainly not a great feeling, but certainly we have trust and confidence in our guys.
So that is Mario Cristobal with the kind of post-game interview that you might expect. Then things kind of take a weird turn towards the end. Listen to how this unfolded with Scott Van Pelt and Mario Cristobal.
I loved what you told me last time about cringing initially at the idea of being back. And there's still 60. I'm not. You got to let me. You got to let me. Brother. Do you not trust me enough?
Lord.
Do you not trust me enough to ask a question? Let me ask you a question.
You're a professional, brother. You're a professional. I do trust you. Just hit me up with 1-0, and we're going to be great.
I'm asking you, what are you proudest of tonight that you accomplished tonight? 1-0 is always the goal. What are you most proud of that your group accomplished tonight?
Wow, I don't know where to start. I guess I'm most proud to be part of an organization because, again, I get to sit here and do the interviews and be in front of camera. There's so many people, man. I mean, the way our medical staff works, strength and conditioning, sports science, like, look, at the end of the day, at the core, I'm an offensive lineman. I'm like a team guy. So when the shine comes this way, I'm like, it's kind of not my thing. Let's spread it out for so many people that have sacrificed so much and have gotten us this far, but we didn't come this far just to come this far. We still have a lot of work to do.
That's what my guy Alex Toussaint says when I ride the Peloton. Didn't come this far to come this far. I tell you what, I'll make you a deal. I'm going to be in Miami. You come out on the right end of the next 60 minutes. I'll ask you the question you don't want to answer tonight, all right?
Got to get back to work, brother. Want to know.
Go do it. Travel safely. I'll see you in Miami. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. God bless. Go Canes.
You know, if Miami winds up meeting Indiana for the national championship, and I hope that happens. I do have a rooting interest tonight. My son is going to be there, and I paid a lot of money for him to go to school there. So, you know, I've got interest in Indiana beating Oregon tonight and beating them for the second time this year. But these two coaches, they're going to be peas in a pod. We'll get to what Kurt Cignetti said the other day, just a moment on a couple moments on being happy. But they're so afraid, and maybe this is part of the key to coaching college kids. They're not really kids anymore. The average age of the Indiana players is like 23. But the younger players, like, I'm not going to show you that I'm happy because we haven't done anything yet. We're here to win the national title. So I'm not going to let on. And he's so afraid that he's going to say something to Scott Van Pelt that will indicate that they've accomplished something. And they have, because Miami was questionable to be there. With the 2 losses, it was uncertain whether they were even going to make it. They make it in as a 10th seed, and now they're going to be playing for the national championship on their home field. And I think that had a lot to do with how Cristobal was like bizarre about it. Calm down, dude. You're okay. You're going to be going to the national championship game and you're playing at home, which, by the way, is not always the best thing. with all the distractions that you have for all your friends and family who want to get on board this incredible ride that you're on, it might be better to get away. But he doesn't have that luxury, or he does have the luxury of staying home. Look at it either way. I think the one thing is you work out at your own practice facility leading up to the game. I think that's a big advantage because that's what they're used to. As for Ole Miss, and I would have liked to have seen them get to the national championship game because I think it's a cool story. It's just like what happened with Steve Fisher and Bo Schembechler wanting a Michigan man to coach the basketball team when Bill Frieder left for Arizona State. He said, forget it. You can't coach through the playoff. You're gone. And the same thing was said to Lane Kiffin, and it would have been cool to watch him. Now, I just read this, and I didn't realize this, and I guess I should have, that there was a $250,000 bonus on the line for Lane Kiffin last night. Not that he needs cash, but, had they won, he would have collected that. So on that hand, I would say, good they lost. This is Pete Golding. He's not even the interim coach. He's the head coach now, and did a remarkable job, and looks back now on just how far this team came.
We knew it was going to be hard. I mean, guys, it's the semifinals. It's supposed to be hard, and when these games, you got to be at your best. You got to play at your best. You got to coach at your best. And if you don't deserve to win. I mean, it's the semifinals, go to the national championship game. So I thought we had our opportunity by not playing our best game, and that's what we said at halftime. We haven't played our best up to this point. We've been here before. All right, let's go out here and let's spot the ball, and let's find a way to make it one possession in the fourth quarter and find a way to win the game. And our kids came back and did that and went up. And so hats off to them. We just got to find a way to close it. Got to do a better job coaching.
And we're going to find out what's going to happen next year because Trinidad Chambliss, who's had this amazing college football career. He was a 0-star recruit. He goes to Ferris State, which is Division II. He leads them to the national title. He goes to Ole Miss for what looked like 1 year of eligibility remaining. He's the backup quarterback, kind of a guy you put in around the goal line and, running situations. And he rises to this level where he's even in the conversation for Heisman Trophy, and now he's petitioning for another year. You certainly want him back, but if not, they have to move on. One other thing before we break here, and I want to get to the Indiana-Oregon game tonight. This is actually breaking news, if you want to call it that. If this is the kind of thing that interests you, it interests me. It's been announced by Prime Video that Al Michaels will be back next season. It's hard to believe they've been doing games since 2022, but at 82, because he's 81 now, he's going to be back to call Thursday Night Football on Prime. Michaels has been campaigning for this. He says, I feel great. Everyone at Amazon has been fantastic. I love working with this group. I've been looking at this 1 year at a time, and as long as I feel I'm at the top of my game, I'd like to continue. Newsflash, Al, you're not at the top of your game anymore, and people notice, and you don't have the pizzazz that you need for the big games anymore. He's going to do the playoff game tomorrow night at Soldier Field. That'll be the last game that he does this year, but looks like he's coming back, and really strange that this has happened this way. But I guess, and to me, this is not based on talent because they can find plenty of young broadcasters at this point who have the talent. This must be about sales, and it's also about recognition. That there are a lot of people who don't pay attention as closely to the games as you or I do. And they, it's Al Michaels. That's a voice I'm used to hearing doing night football for 40 years. Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. That's Al. Oh, we got him on Thursday Night Football. Fine. Plus for the sales aspect. And when they have presentations, they can say, we have the greatest of all time here in Al Michaels. But he doesn't have his fastball anymore. And he says, as long as I feel I'm at the top of my game, no, Al, you're not at the top of your game. All right, coming up, Indiana and Oregon preview and what Kurt Cignetti said about being happy. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
A lot to live up to if tonight's Oregon-Indiana game matches last night's game, which was just tremendous football game. Great drama at the end. I don't often stay up late for those kind of games, but I did. Glad I did. Great finish and great job by by Miami to get to this far. Now, this game has a really intriguing angle to it in that Indiana's unbeaten, number one in the country. Oregon has one loss. The one loss was to Indiana at home, and it was a 10-point loss, and it was a game that Indiana was somewhat dominant in. But in hearing some of the lead up to this week, Gary Danielson talked about this, that it was his feeling. In fact, let me pull that because this was earlier this week. Gary Danielson, as you know, has retired from CBS. He's not going to do any more games, and I thought really did a good job with college football over the years. And Danielson was saying that he had done the game against Oregon. I think he did. I think that was a CBS game, and it was his feeling that. I'll paraphrase what he said. He said that he felt like the Oregon players leading into that game, they had just beaten Penn State, not knowing that beating Penn State at that point was not that big a deal, but they had just beaten Penn State, and it was his feeling that that the Oregon players were kind of like, okay, we got through the tough one now, and we're not that worried about Indiana at home. And, in fact, they should have been. And one thing about Indiana, they don't overlook anybody, and it's part of what makes up Curt Cignetti, and this was part of the exchange at the news conference yesterday.
You were described in The Athletic this week by a former player saying he's never satisfied, he's never happy. Is that accurate?
Well, I think you got to put that in cloud. And you're talking about on a practice field or when you're evaluating tape and your performance in terms of standards, right? Because I do firmly believe you get better, you get worse, you never stay the same, right? And so you got to keep that edge. No, that's not right. I mean, there's a lot of times I am happy, I just don't show I'm happy. And if I'm going to ask my players, right, to play the first game, first play, to play 150 the same regardless of the competitive circumstances, then I can't be seen on the sideline, right, high-fiving people and celebrating, or what's going to happen, right? What's the effect going to be, right? So that's why I am like I am during the game.
Yeah, it's effective, right? And if you watch them, you don't see much going on the sidelines, even when they're blowing Alabama out. There's not a lot of that. And that's probably what helps to keep them on track. Predictions. Who's going to win tonight? Booger McFarland last night on PTI. He got the game wrong. He did think that Ole Miss would win the game, but I think he's got some SEC bias, having been a star at LSU. And this is his take on what he expects to see tonight from Indiana and Oregon.
I think both quarterbacks are going to play well. Dante Moore didn't play well in the first matchup. He threw 2 interceptions. They couldn't get any explosive plays. Now, since then, Dante Moore, the Oregon quarterback, has gotten a lot better. They're running the football. They're controlling the line of scrimmage. Neither team ran the football well. I think both teams are playing at their best. I think this is going to be high-level competition. I think if you look at Indiana, Fernando Mendoza is going to play well. Like he's a magician now. We're going to talk about him when we get to April. And what we're going to say in April, he's a fast processor. He can get the football out of his hands quickly. He's very accurate with the football. So I think we're going to see high-level competition between two teams. Both want to run the football, but they both have supremely talented quarterbacks that do it a little bit differently.
All right, so we'll get you out of here on this. Which way are you leaning in the Indiana-Oregon game?
You know, we've been talking about this guy for the last 2 or 3 months. You guys asked me about Curt Cignetti, and I said, hey, if you don't know him, just Google him. He is a really good football coach. So to me, this comes down to, do you take the team in Indiana that has the really good unit, offense, defense, and special teams with the head coach that's the master motivator, or do you take the star power of Oregon with Dante Moore, who could possibly be the number 2 pick in the draft, Kenyon Sadiq, Decorian Moore, all the 5-star players? I'm going to go against the explosiveness and the 5-star. I'm going with the guy who told us from the get-go, hey, all I do is win, no matter what. Just Google me. I'm going with Curt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers. I think we're going to get Indiana and Ole Miss playing for the championship in Miami, and no one, and I mean no one, had that championship game 4 months ago.
Now, obviously, we're not going to get Ole Miss playing for the national championship. They lost a wonderful game, close game last night to Miami. But, Booger might be on to something there. And so much of this centers around Cignetti, an unknown commodity outside of James Madison 2 years ago, right? And in the last 2 years, and especially this year, he's like the hot guy, so much so that there's now talk about the NFL and whether or not he would leave college football to go do that. The buyout's nothing. It's like $15 million. If he wants to go, he can go. Is he going to go? Probably not. But the effect of what he has done at a school that was the losingest program in history before he got there has trickled up or shot up, I guess, to the NFL, as Tom Pelissero, who covers the league for the NFL Network, pointed out to Rich Eisen yesterday about the draw of not just Cignetti, but his program.
You still don't have a lot of dialed up the classic young coordinator candidates to get hired across the board. So, there were multiple teams. The Titans and the Giants, at minimum, did a lot of homework on Marcus Freeman. Ultimately, Marcus Freeman went back to Notre Dame. I anticipate he'll get a new deal there, but he'll be a name to watch in the future. Curt Cignetti doesn't fit any box, but Google him. He wins. And that's what he's done his entire career. It would make sense for people to at least inquire. Cignetti, though, also just got a new deal. He doesn't strike me as somebody who is chasing that extra $5 million a year, chasing the next level. It's a unique situation because Fernando Mendoza quite possibly could be the number one pick. I think the more likely scenario, Rich, is that you will see NFL teams showing interest in other members of his coaching staff. Chandler Whitmer is one who is the quarterback's coach and co-offensive coordinator, who I know that teams have some level of interest in. So even if it's not getting Curt Cignetti, when you're drafting Fernando Mendoza and you are, like with all young quarterbacks, trying to build that nest, which is not one person, it's many people around him, bringing in someone like Whitmer who can help bridge the gap between what Mendoza did at Indiana and what he will need to do in the NFL, I would say that would be a more likely scenario than Curt Cignetti making the jump. Also, Curt Cignetti is not a guy who is going to pull Lane Kiffin and just, hit the eject button in the middle of a playoff run here. If anybody's going to make a run at Curt Cignetti, that's probably still, I don't know when they play again, but at least a few days, if not a couple of weeks away.
It's tonight, and yes, if it goes the distance, that means it'll be a week from Monday night. So there could be time. But the Raiders could wait for that, and that's an interesting thought, that if you're going to bring in Mendoza as the number one pick, why not bring in the guy that worked with him? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Raiders would hire. And this, it only happened here as far as I know, the foolishness of hiring Jim Zorn as the offensive coordinator before they hired a coach after Joe Gibbs left. Crazy, which led to ultimately Zorn getting the job when basically nobody else was going to take it. But that might be a way to go. That might make a lot of sense, that whoever is hired as head coach of the Raiders, he is told, yes, you're going to hire the co-offensive coordinator from Indiana because he's worked with Fernando Mendoza. Now, some of what you're hearing about Mendoza, even though he won the Heisman Trophy and even though he's being projected as the number one pick, Jesse Palmer, who does college football, does a lot of games for ESPN and ABC, he was on with Dan Patrick yesterday, and he said that, some of these guys are college superstars. Some of them you can tell are going to be NFL stars, and some of them not so much.
In the 19 years I've been covering college football, I can probably count on one hand how many guys I knew coming out I thought were going to be good. Like, I remember I knew Andrew Luck was going to be good. I knew that. I knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be good. I felt good about that.
Cam.
Cam. You knew he was just from a physical standpoint, a stature standpoint, he was going to be a problem. I think with Fernando, like I'm a big fan of his, and it's more because of the cerebral and just how he processes things. I know he's not an elite athlete. His mobility has gotten better throughout his career. He makes really, really good decisions, and he's stepped up. He's had some Heisman moments. He's had some moments against good defenses this year where he's really made big plays in big moments. Dante Moore, this is really the only year you've ever seen Dante Moore play. He had 5 starts at UCLA as a true freshman 2 years ago. He sat last year behind Dylan Gabriel watching him at Oregon. And then this year you've gotten to watch him. He's a very natural passer. There's a lot you like there, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, listen, the Raiders are sitting right now at number 1, and you've got Brock Bowers on offense, Ashton Genty, whichever of those two guys, if that's where they end up, it's a porous offensive line. There's a lot of work there to be done. It'll be interesting. We'll overanalyze this to death over the next several months before the draft, but I think they're both really good prospects. I think Ty Simpson's also a really good prospect, but I don't think there is a surefire first overall pick necessarily in terms of one of those guys who's astronomically better than the other.
That is Jesse Palmer with Dan Patrick yesterday about the 2 quarterbacks that we're going to see tonight. And I am wearing my Indiana shirt. Go Hoosiers. But this hopefully will be a really good game like it was last night. Let me shift over to the Mike McDaniel situation. This actually broke while we were on the air yesterday, and it was somewhat unexpected in that it had gone until Thursday. Usually these moves are made either a day after or 48 hours after the end of the season. And McDaniel even had a news conference where he said, I'm the coach of the Dolphins until further notice. Well, further notice came yesterday, and he was out. And it leads immediately to, okay, there's history here between Dan Quinn and Mike McDaniel. And they actually talked about it when they played against each other in Madrid back in the middle of November. And this was McDaniel on what Quinn did for him in helping to help him to overcome alcoholism.
Dan Quinn holds a special place in my heart, in my career. I think he was there at ground zero when I became sober, and supported me and believed in me and gave me the opportunity to continue what I love to do. So for that, I'll be forever indebted to him. I think it speaks to the type of man he is and the type of leader he is that I know really he touches every player he coaches from a true, authentic standpoint, and I think the Commanders are very fortunate to have him.
Okay, obviously he likes him, and kind of says there, I owe you one. This is Quinn with an explanation of what he did, and he's also said that he's very much in favor of what he does offensively, things he does. I mean, it's more of a Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan type of offense, which may suit him better. Kyle Shanahan, as you may know, was Quinn's offensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons, and McDaniel was on the staff, and that's where the alcohol issue propped up, and Quinn was instrumental in helping him to overcome it.
For us, all of us, I think when there's an issue, sometimes you don't want to let somebody you're with know you're counting on them, they're counting on you, but really leaning in, that's the biggest strength we can do. And in that space, all I want to do is help and give support, and then the real work begins for the person who's in that spot. And that's exactly what Mike did, to say, this is what I'm going to work on and how I'm going to go do it. And then that's when the real work begins. And it's part of the reason I'm so proud of him, to make sure, okay, this is something that's happening, this is how I'm going to go deal with it. And then I'm staying connected to that and sharing that with other people. So anybody he now can help and pay that forward. And I think that takes a lot of guts to do that. And that's one of the reasons I'm real proud of him.
So you got a mutual admiration society going on there. Seemed to make sense. If McDaniel doesn't get another head coaching job in the cycle now, we've got now 8 openings with the Dolphins opening up. There's some talk that he might go to Cleveland. We'll see. But in looking back as to why this job is open, Tom Lovero's got some follow-up on that today as to why it didn't work out with Cliff Kingsbury after Kingsbury was the golden boy a year ago. 12 months ago, you couldn't say enough good things about Cliff Kingsbury. You never would have thought that he'd be fired. You would have thought, oh, he's leaving to go get a head coaching job. He's going to be highly in demand. And you heard his name for college jobs, too, and he's coached at college at Texas Tech. But this year, it came to an end, and Tom does some forensic work here to try to figure it out. He says the problem this year may have been that Kingsbury tried to run 2024 back with the team crushed by injuries and put his minty young quarterback at risk in the process, with Daniels missing 9 starts with various injuries. At times, Kingsbury seemed to run the offense of Monk, Clark, and Sanders instead of Mo, Larry, and Curley, sometimes with the receivers that they just pulled off the street, which is true. I mean, you're trying to put together an offense with guys who don't even know it and are available because they're not that good in most cases. One of the reported reasons that Kingsbury was bounced was that the offense relied on the pass too much. This is curious since the Commanders were 9th in rushing attempts in the league in 2025. Maybe it was the 3 particular pass attempts, and you remember this series, 3 particular pass attempts that got Quinn worked up. The 3 failed attempts at the goal line early in the 31-0 loss to Minnesota, which turned around and went the length of the field to take a 14-0 lead. Quinn later said, "That was the game, I thought, honestly, where it shifted the most." Kingsbury later in the week said there weren't a lot of great plays called in that game, and that's on me. Well, that, sometimes, as John Thompson says, if you say it's your fault, people will believe it. So, maybe that led to it. Also, there's been this report, and Jordan Schultz is the son of Howard Schultz, the billionaire from Starbucks. So his kid could have gone into the business, could have had an executive job, but he wants to be an NFL insider. And he put out on his site that there was dysfunction between the front office and the offensive coordinator, that there's meddling that's been going on by Adam Peters. The coaching staff on the personnel, which players use, an ongoing problem dating back to 2024 when they were having success, he put on social media. With the team struggling this year, it reached new heights. There were notable disagreements. Moreover, I have not gotten the impression that Dan Quinn wanted to move on from his coordinators. Well, he had moved on from Joe Witt Jr. when he took away the play calling for Week 11. So that was done. Once that happened, you can't bring Joe Witt Jr. back as the defensive coordinator. The circumstance with Kingsbury could be, but not sure. I mean, if in fact the general manager of the team is meddling with the offensive coordinator, when Kingsbury said, or not Kingsbury, but Peters said this past week that Dan Quinn has total say over the assistant coaches. So there's with all these things, there's always a grain of truth in it, but the full story we may or may not find out at some point. All right, coming up, the Wizards have Trae Young. Should we be happy about that? Reaction next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
19 years ago today, the introduction of a device that you probably could not live without. I'll get to that in the next hour. Meantime, Wizards are playing tonight. They're playing against the New Orleans Pelicans, and they will not have C.J. McCollum on the floor. He's been traded along with Corey Kispert to the Atlanta Hawks. They're not playing. They didn't play the other night as well when they were blown out once again. But the Trae Young situation is interesting now. It's not official. They have not officially announced the trade. I don't know. They have to go through something or another on that. Plus, he's got a bad knee, so he's probably not going to play for a couple of weeks until he's fully healthy. But once he gets on the court, you scratch your head. Well, first you scratch your head to figure, why would this guy want to come here? According to reports, he made it clear that he wanted out of Atlanta, and it was Washington where he wanted to go. When's the last time a player wanted to come to Washington's professional basketball team as a free agent who was in his prime? Can't remember. I don't think they've ever really signed a big-time free agent. They've signed free agents, of course, but in the history of the team, starting when free agency came in the 90s, 80s, I don't think they've ever done it. No, it's all been guys who have been at the end of their careers or, fringe players. There's not been a lot. Why would they come here? They stink. They're terrible. So they make the trade for a guy who wanted to come here. He's got a lot of money left on his contract, including a $49 million player option for next year. And you're not trying to win. You want to make sure that you're among the bottom 8 because if you're not among the bottom 8, you lose the draft pick. You lose your first-round pick. It's not protected. It goes to the New York Knicks, so you want to make sure that you finish in the bottom 8, and a player who can score a lot of points is not somebody you want winning a lot of games for you. He hasn't won a lot when he's been in Atlanta. In fact, their record has been worse when he's been on the court than when he hasn't been on the court. They've gone 60-80 over the last 3 years with Young in the lineup and 33-29 without him. So 20 games under 500 with him in the lineup and 4 games over 500 without him in the lineup. That's not that great. And so as Candace Buckner writes in the Post today, this trade for Young wasn't made to accumulate more wins. Now he is not a winner and has never proven to be a leader. I played some sound from Reggie Miller the other day on the Dan Patrick Show. Apparently he doesn't work that hard. He's a guy that can fill up the bucket. That's what he can do. But there are other guys in the NBA who can do that as well. And what Candace Buckner says, the way they have to look at this is they might think of him in these terms, like a squeeze of zest into their slow-cooking stew. And it is a slow-cooking stew. They're slogging through a third miserable season right now. She writes, of all the things Young is not, he remains an offensive Houdini. When he's on the ball, you'll either be flying from a far distance or lobbing towards a teammate at the rim. In 21-22, Atlanta produced the second-best offensive rating, and last season, Young led the NBA with 11.6 assists, though he has also topped the league in turnovers 3 times. For the Wizards, he becomes an incentive creator as the team desperately needs for their young core. Inventive creator is what she wrote. But he is dealing with a sprained medial collateral ligament, so he's going to probably be out for a couple of weeks. Tony and Mike trying to make heads or tails of this and what Trae Young is doing in Washington.
Atlanta got C.J. McCollum, a fine veteran guard. Corey Kispert, a fine shooter in return. Wilbon, what does this trade do for each team?
You know, for the Atlanta Hawks, which is most important, it allows them flexibility, economic flexibility to pursue, we are told, through reporting, Anthony Davis, if they really want to go that direction, and they put Anthony Davis with otherwise this young squad that has some appeal to it, right? So that's for Atlanta. Yes. And if they don't do it immediately, they go into the offseason with a lot of cap room, and maybe if they don't have a free agent they can attract, they can work trades, maybe a 3-way trade to get the people they want. For the Wizards, the amount of hysteria being expended over what Trae Young is going to do for the Wizards. You know what Trae Young is going to do for the Wizards? He's going to sit. And he may warm up in the pen, and that may be an audition, if he plays a few games, for somebody that needs what Trae Young can do, which is put the ball in the basket. He's averaged 25 points a game for his career. He can do that, whether it's coming off the bench for a team that's close, not the Wizards. He has no future with the Wizards. It's to set up the next move for Trae Young. That's what it's for him.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with much of what you're saying. In terms of Atlanta, I don't know what it does for Atlanta, except it gets rid of somebody who was very expensive, who did not fit in. C.J. McCollum is 34 years old. He's a fine player. He's never a problem. He's averaged 19.6 points his entire career. Corey Kispert shoots 39 from 3 and gets his points in a hurry. Doesn't have to play a lot of minutes.
Yep.
They're not great players, but they may fit in better with Atlanta than Trae Young did. With the Wizards, I don't know are they going to build around Trae Young?
No,
I don't know what they're building. No one knows what they're building. There's 2 things that have to be said here about the Wizards. One, everyone will say that Trae Young doesn't play any defense. Neither do the Wizards. The Wizards give up 124 points a game. It's the second worst defense in the whole league. So he's going to fit right in. The second thing is the Wizards have, whatever they're building, they have no stars right now. Absolutely no stars. So maybe they have one in Trae Young. Maybe if he plays a little bit, people will come to see him. And that's important because they also have the second lowest attendance in the league.
Yeah.
The second worst defense, the second lowest attendance.
Would you pay to go see Trae Young?
Trae Young is an exciting player. I wouldn't pay to see anybody else there.
Yeah, but
I would pay to see. I'd pay to see him.
I not that Tony's cheap or anything like that, but I wonder when the last time he bought a ticket to a sporting event, because he can't just sit in the stands. That's part of the TV fame of all that. So I think he's hypothetical. He would buy a ticket to see Trae Young play. The follow up on what has been one of the most bizarre stories of the week. I don't know how there've probably been others that would rival this, but it's indicative of what's going on in the college game today, where there's no rules. There's absolutely no rules. So DeMond Williams Jr., he's got 2 years of eligibility. He may try and pull this stunt next year. But he had signed to come back after a really good season. First full year as a starter, threw for over 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, honorable mention, All-American at Washington. He had signed a contract to come back. And a couple days later, he entered the transfer portal. In all of this, his agent quit. He said, I don't want to be associated with this kind of thing. Doug Hendrickson of Wasserman Football dropped him as a client. Then, right after that, he retained lawyer Darren Heitner, who's a veteran of NCAA eligibility cases. They spent the day discussing options, and apparently this young man, DeMond Williams, was convinced that if you do this, you're going to be a schmuck. People are going to hate you, and we're not even sure it's totally legal. Now, maybe, because there doesn't seem to be any rules. But now he has said, I'm all in. I'm all in. No, you're not. You came back because you had to. You thought you were getting more money, and reports were that he was going to get more than the $4 million that he was being promised to play at LSU. So, Lane Kiffin winds up at LSU. He looks at DeMond Williams, said, well, that fits what I want to do. I'll give you more than $4 million. Oh, you will? Okay, I'm going to leave. Because you can do that now. These contracts apparently are not binding. So he put out a statement, DeMond Williams, I'm fully committed and focused on contributing to what we are building. I never intended to call attention away from such an important moment, meaning the college football playoff. What? No, you did. You did. Or you had to understand that that's what you're going to do. I mean, come on. So even in these last couple of days while this was going on, they're scrambling around in Washington because they counted on him to be their quarterback. Now they got to find out who they can pay and get somebody else to transfer. The coach, Jed Fish, put out a statement last night, said that he and Williams will, quote, work together to begin the process of repairing relationships and regaining the trust of the Husky community. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Who trusts this guy? Who's to say he won't try and pull this stunt another week from now? Fish added, DeMond and I have engaged in very honest and heartfelt conversations about his present and future. We both agree that the University of Washington is the best place for him to continue his academic, athletic, and social development, meaning he couldn't get the bigger cash elsewhere, so he's going to have to settle for the cash here, which makes it the best place for him to be. Oh, my God. What an S show is going on in college football. But if there are no rules, this is what happens. But bigger picture, if you watch the game like I watched it last night, you saw a very entertaining football game. I mean, we as consumers, as fans of the game, we're getting a good product. It's the sausage. The sausage, the way it's made, might disgust you. But when you eat the sausage tastes very good. And that's the old, if you like sausage, you don't want to work in a sausage factory. Or you might not even want to see where the sausage is made. And the sausage is made in a way where you have these DeMond Williams situations where he signs a contract and then says he's leaving. And then his agent quits. The school scrambles around and finds, oh, no, I'm fully committed. Okay, we'll see. We'll see what kind of trust he has from his teammates who he tried to bail on. We'll see. We'll see about that. All right, coming up, we'll get to the pros finally, as we got a big weekend of NFL playoff games starting tomorrow afternoon, and we'll have a look at that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Technically, Todd Monken still has a job. He is still technically the offensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens, even though John Harbaugh has been fired. The new coach will come in. It'll be up to him to decide whether he wants to keep Monken or not. According to one report, I believe it was Diana Rossini who had this. It may have been that that was part of the fracture that John Harbaugh wanted to keep Todd Monken, which seems crazy to me. They're not running Derrick Henry enough is reason enough. It should not have come down to that last game to win the division had they given him the ball more. He did have some fumbling issues, but that was part of it. But yes, according to various reports, and I think Diana had it, that Monken was still desired by Harbaugh, and that led to ownership to say enough is enough. By the way, for all the Dan Snyder bashing that we've done, and I've done plenty of it over the years for not being available to the media, I didn't realize this, but Steve Bisciotti, who's due to hold a news conference on Tuesday, has not spoken to the media in 4 years. Seems odd. I mean, he seems like a regular guy, even though he's a billionaire. But, that seems strange to me. But Bisciotti has not had any public access to the media in 4 years, and he's going to have that on Tuesday. Anyway, Monken yesterday was on the Ryan Ripken show. That's Cal's kid, and he does a podcast. And he said about coaching Lamar Jackson, he said, I didn't coach Lamar well enough. I didn't have a good relationship as I could have. I didn't do the things we needed to do this year to win games to give ourselves a chance. I believe that. That's I guess something that you might say. You're not going to bash Lamar Jackson on what is likely your way out the door. And Jackson had all kinds of injuries this year. He says, I wish Lamar would have been healthy and seen what we kept building on. We went from 23 to 24. We never just got it going. That's what you have to live with. He disputed reports that he had a strained connection with Jackson. That was out there, too, that he and Harbaugh and Lamar all didn't get along. Under Monken, Jackson won his second NFL Most Valuable Player Award 2023 and put up his best statistical year last year, 2024, when he threw for 41 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. He also pushed back on the idea that Harbaugh had lost the locker room. He called Harbaugh the best at motivating and directing and keeping the team moving in a certain direction. And if you missed Jamison Hensley of the Baltimore Sun, he was on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday. We played that. He said that it was his impression, and he'd been covering the Ravens for 26 years, and he'd been through every practice and every game this year in the locker room. He said that he didn't see any evidence that he had lost the locker room. Sure, players were upset that they were losing, but that wasn't the case. So you got kind of this this thing going on between these insiders. One says, he lost the locker room. Another one said he did not. Anyway, we're about to launch into the playoffs. We got 12 teams playing this weekend. The one from the NFC, who's sitting this round out, according to Richard Sherman, who happened to play for that team, but now is an analyst with Prime and as part of the pre- and the post-game show. That's the team that he says he believes is the best in the NFL.
It's Seattle. It was the day we saw. It was the Seattle Seahawks versus the LA Rams. I mean, it felt like the best two teams. And I mean, Stafford's performance that day was magical. It was magnificent. And if he doesn't win the MVP, then Rich, I don't know what they're doing with the award anymore, because this is just silly. What he threw for 457 in that game in a loss, and he looked fantastic. Obviously, all the distractions with Puka Nacua and the stream, and was he going to do the dance and all that were that same week. But Puka went for 225, I want to say, on 12 grabs, and they looked fantastic, and they lost. And so it looked like two of the best teams in football that day that we got to watch, and it looked like we watched the MVP of the National Football League. If Drake May gets it, it'd be great for him, and what he's done for New England, and Mike Vrabel and that team has been fantastic, but I think it's hard not to give it to Stafford this year.
That would be the MVP. The path to the Super Bowl couldn't be different for the Rams and the Seahawks. Seahawks get the first round bye, and they get to be home for the playoffs until they get to the Super Bowl, whereas the Rams are going to have to do it on the road, and they kick off the playoffs tomorrow afternoon at Carolina. They are the biggest favorite of the weekend. They're 10.5-point favorites. Of the 6 games that are being played, there's only 2 home favorites in this. That's Philadelphia on Sunday afternoon against San Francisco in Philly. They're 4.5-point favorites. And New England at home on Sunday night against the Chargers. They are 3.5-point favorites. Otherwise, it's all road favorites. Rams 10.5 tomorrow afternoon. Green Bay 1.5 at Chicago. Buffalo at Jacksonville. Bills are favored by 1.5. And then the Monday night game to wrap it up, Houston at Pittsburgh. The Texans are favored by 3 points. As for what we're going to see on Prime tomorrow night, the classic matchup, they've met a zillion times as division rivals over the years, two of the oldest franchises in the league, where you got Green Bay playing at Chicago. Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has played for just about every team except those two. I don't think he had any time in either with Green Bay or Chicago. But he's looking at this matchup, and with all the coaching changes that we've seen so far, is it possible that there could be an opening in Green Bay as well if the Packers don't win?
Is it crazy to say, is Matt LaFleur on a hot seat there in Green Bay?
I think that's crazy to say. I think if you look at the organization and them making rash decisions, I don't think that's who they are. So I think it ratchets up even more for next year if they don't win this game and they have a poor showing on offense. But I don't think he's on the hot seat, no.
I talked to Dan Orlovsky yesterday, and he said he felt like Sean McDermott might be coaching for his job this weekend.
That would also be shocking to me if that was the case. I think if anything there, maybe they might lose Joe Brady at coordinator, but if they don't win this game, maybe they try to freshen that up and look somewhere else. But that game is going to be really interesting because the Bills, at least as of yesterday, were still favored in that game on the road going to Jacksonville. But Jacksonville winning 8 in a row, just kind of putting on their tape the last few days and watching them. It's been Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. It's been great to watch. Trevor Lawrence is really these last 8 or 9 games.
But what's different, Ryan?
So I think first of all is just the confidence. But they had, they played Seattle and the Rams. And only scored 12 points and 7 points right before their bye week. They went into the bye. I don't know what they did, but they came out guns a-blazing. I think the addition of Jacoby Myers helped, but Parker Washington has been awesome on that offense. They've got a ton of talent, but Trevor is playing with a ton of confidence back there. And even last week and the week before, watching the games, watching him get pressured, his ability to see it, to get the ball out and throw it accurately, he's done a great job through the year of getting better and better at that. So confidence is such a huge thing for quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks that have been up and down. And Trevor's playing at a really high level right now.
So you can learn that. That's a learned skill that you can see it, throw it. You can see it before it happens.
I think part of it for him is being more comfortable in the offense. I think it's also having a coach that demands more of you, and that's a huge thing with Trevor this year is Liam Cohen and the demands that he has put on him. But yes, you can certainly, that's something you can learn throughout a season and get better and better at. And I think Liam Cohen, we got to give him some flowers because you look at Baker last year compared to this year and his numbers, there's no crazy coincidence there that Liam Cohen was his coach last year and has really done wonders with Trevor Lawrence this year.
We heard that maybe John Harbaugh lost the locker room. Ian Rappaport reported that. Adam Schefter came back and said that that wasn't the case in Baltimore. But how does a coach lose the locker room?
I love the Schefter versus Rappaport.
Yeah.
Oh, the reports, the insider reports. How does a coach lose the locker room? I think part of it, and I don't know anything about that situation, so not speaking on that, just speaking in general, part of it is, and I've seen over the years, if you don't demand the same thing, the same commitment to excellence out of your great players that you do out of the young rookies, it's easy for a coach to come in and yell at these young guys and demand a lot out of the young guys. But when you don't do that with the best players on your team and the stars and you kind of let them get away with things, I think that's the first way where you can start to lose a locker room and guys can start questioning, your consistency as a leader.
Which makes a lot of sense. Ryan Fitzpatrick with Dan Patrick. Think about Tom Brady and the Bill Belichick relationship. And they both had an understanding that Belichick had to come down on Brady as hard as he did the second-string tackle. And it worked. And it worked for a long time. It worked for 20 years. And then they kind of got sick of each other. And then the big debate about the success was it Brady or Belichick. And Brady goes off and wins the Super Bowl, and Belichick gets fired. And that sort of settles that debate. But I think there's a lot to that, having certainly never played at a high level of sports. But you can understand that if the star player is getting treatment that's not like the others, that it can create that kind of problem in the locker room. And I mean, what was reported by Mike Preston was there were separate rules for Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and that he was falling asleep in the meetings. They've denied that. There was friction with Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator. He's denied that. John Harbaugh he had denied it leading up to his last game. We haven't heard from Harbaugh since then, but. I would think that makes a total amount of sense what Fitzpatrick says there. Got a little update on Trae Young coming to the Wizards, and again, I guess there's a procedure that has to be done in the NBA for it to become officially a trade, because it's still not official. But he put out a post on social media, sort of a goodbye to the Atlanta fans. And Trae Young wrote, "The last few years weren't how I wanted them to be. Expectations that we created for ourselves, reaching heights that Atlanta had never reached before. Bringing a championship to Atlanta was always my goal. However, between the injuries, the setbacks, and the situations that didn't make sense, we never truly got to see our full potential." He didn't elaborate on what those situations were, but okay, there's that. He has $95 million left on his deal. He also goes on to write, "The pain of staying the same eventually outweighed the uncertainty of change. Change is often met with fear, but I see it as another opportunity." He's their franchise leader in three-pointers with over 1,200 assists, close to 5,000, led them to the postseason 3 times. He says, "I'm walking into the next chapter ecstatic, with my head held high and my eyes forward. It's time to see what's possible when the support is real and the vision is clear. We move." So I guess he would be the first player in recent years to use the word ecstatic when discussing a trade to the Washington Wizards. I'm not sure about that, but I think that might be a pretty good guess. I don't know. I just think that's not something you usually hear, but that's the way that Trae Young sees it. As far as what we're going to see from him, I would think. Now, I don't know how these things work. I guess is it possible that they could trade him before the deadline? We still have over a month. I mean, is it possible they put him out on the court and just kind of see what they got and trade him before this year's deadline, or will they do it next year? I mean, I don't see anything long-term here. All this discussion that, oh, yeah, well, maybe he'll fit in with the younger players and he's the point guard that they need and yada, yada, yada. They don't win with him. I mean, that's the big thing. The thing is that they are better. The Hawks have been better record-wise without Trae Young than with Trae Young. And that's a pretty damning statistic, wouldn't you say? I mean, sometimes you look at a guy's stats and go, he didn't score that much. Can't tell that much about his defense, but hey, they win a lot of games when he's on the court. Yeah, it kind of works that way. It's not a bad thing. All right, that's it for me this week. I'll be back on Monday. Bram is coming up next.